So the first topic we're going to look at is hazard identification, identifying any hazards in the workplace. Now, you'll hear me through these videos. I'll refer to a workplace. Okay, and by workplace I mean, look, that doesn't mean you could be operating a martial arts class from your home garage. You could be doing martial arts from a full-time permanent dojo to a back room at a local community centre or PCYC. They're all considered workplaces, okay? You'll also hear me, I'll refer to your classes, your operations as a business, okay? And the reason I do this is it puts it all into context, okay? You have to approach this as running a business, okay? Because that's how your duty of care and how you fit within different legislation and activities is seen. You're seen as potentially running a business, whether it's a hobby, whether you're doing it on a volunteer basis, whatever. You've still got to approach it as a business and treat it as such, and we have to identify that it is considered a workplace. All right, so in terms of conducting an initial hazard identification, the great idea is using a checklist, and you'll see there's one you can download on the site here to get you started. Now, the best thing, when people first think of hazards, they generally think of a workplace like, electrical hazards and machinery and things like that. So it's quite easy to think that we don't have many hazards in a martial arts context. Whereas, of course, actually the reverse is true. We have a lot of potential hazards that we need to ensure we have recorded on a risk register, and we've determined the potential for harm or injury, and then put some controls in place to lessen the consequences of stuff that might happen. So probably some of the first things that come to mind is just the environment itself, where you're training. Do you do a preliminary inspection of the venue? Is the floor clean? Are your mats clean? Is your training space safe to operate? If you're doing throwing-based activities, are your mats appropriately fall rated? There's an Australia and New Zealand standard for that. So are you using the appropriate matting for the activities that you're doing? Other things in the environment, access to toilets, drink fountains. When it's really hot or really cold, is it still a safe environment to train in? Other things, so just with our clients, do you conduct health screenings? So Fitness Australia, in conjunction with Sports Medicine Australia and others, have put out a standard health screening form, which we've adapted, and again, you can download here in the site to use with your clients. But we need, as instructors, we need to have an understanding of do our clients have existing medical conditions that perhaps will not allow them to do some of the activities that we have structured or we have planned. We're going to need to work around that and put some contingencies in place. Other simple things go emergencies. So if there is some type of emergency, so maybe there's an electrical fire, maybe there's a building fire, someone injures themselves, but whatever, if you're required to evacuate the building, do you have a plan? Okay, have you got this stuff actually written down? Have you done an assessment based on, if this happens, then this is what we need to do? You need to have this stuff documented. Some of the easy things with martial arts, look, there's a risk that clients are going to get hit or kicked. Whether you do non-contact sparring or light contact or full contact, whatever you do, there's a risk of injury there. So what controls do you put in place based on that? What protective equipment are you using? What training do you give the guys first? What sort of level of supervision is there? If someone does get injured, if there's a blood spill, do you have, there's guidelines for how to deal with that. You can't expect yourself or your assistant instructors to just clean up other people's blood without taking the appropriate precautions. There's potential for exposure to any sort of bloodborne disease or contaminant. So we need to have controls in place for how we deal with these things. If you're using weapons at all, so do you have a policy around how weapons are transported to and from class? How are they used within a class? Is there a specification on the type of weapon that's allowed to be used? How are they stored? Are they checked for suitability before and after training? Things like that. These are just some simple things that come up that a lot of times are overlooked and are left out. So when we're doing that initial hazard identification, it's more than just electrical hazards and things like that. It's a very comprehensive activity that you need to undertake. So what I would suggest is obviously download the template and the sheet that we've provided for you. Have a look through that. Take a walk around your training area, your club, your garage, or the room that you use at the community centre. Have a look in the toilets, have a look in the storerooms, and identify anything that has the potential to hurt yourself, your instructors, your students, and any other visitors that might be there, maybe parents that are watching or things like that, and really go through and identify any potential hazard for harm or injury. What we'll do next, the next video, we're going to look at, once we've identified those hazards, conducting appropriate risk assessments on each of those hazards and giving them a value and a rating.